Wow, it's Experience 6. This week we're going to have you create another technology-enhanced learning experience. As you've learned already, there are two basic ways of integrating technology in the classroom. One is a technology-enhanced learning experience, and the other is a technology-enhanced professional experience. So let's review the learning experience. The technology-enhanced learning experience is a lesson plan, basically. And there are 4 things you need to know to put together and write up a lesson plan. First, you need to know who you're going to teach. You have to identify your learners. Second, you need to know what you're going to teach. You need to identify your objectives. Then you need to figure out how you're going to teach it, but that's really the wrong word here. We want you to figure out how your students are going to learn it. That's different. So here you create your lesson. And fourth, you need to figure out how you'll know if your students learned it. You need to create your assessment. The technology-enhanced lesson plan checklist follows those 4 basic steps, but with a couple of additions. What you're trying to create is more than a traditional lesson plan. Most importantly, we're trying to involve our students in deeply engaging, relevant experiences that will help them learn the required objectives. But at the same time, we also want to help them become creative problem solvers, more collaborative, better communicators, and critical thinkers. So in your technology-enhanced lesson plan, you'll need to create 7 sections as you develop this more than a lesson plan. So now I'm going to explain each of those sections, and they're also included in the checklist. Section 1 is the title and the author section. Since you'll be sharing this with the rest of the class and also the world, it needs to be easily searched for. Your title is one of the top pieces that gets searched by the search engine, so you should include the student age or grade and basic learning goal and a mention of the technology tool that you'll be learning. For example, here's a title and a subtitle that does the job. The title is To Kill a Mockingbird, Themes and Symbols Students Project. The subtitle is 9th grade students use Adobe Spark to create class presentations by Jane Deere. The second section you need to create is to identify the learners. Who are you going to teach? Here in this example we've identified 9th grade students. In this section you'll explain how you will know that this project you're planning to have them do is appropriate for their age. Is it too easy or too hard? You need to understand their cognitive characteristics or learning characteristics. And I've provided a link in the checklist that will help you where you can search online for that. Include the characteristics that best fit your lesson plan. Section 3 is to identify the standards. In other words, what are you going to teach? So you've found a Utah Core standard that you need to teach, but in this class you also need to identify an ISTE standard that you wish to focus on. In each experience throughout this semester, we'll focus on a set of ISTE standards for teachers and for students, and they're found on the main experience page before you get into the sections. Now, the Utah Core standards tell you what you're supposed to teach. The ISTE standards you choose tell you what you want your students to become better at in this learning process they'll engage in. So in this section, you copy those standards that you've chosen, both the Utah Core and the ISTE standards, and then you ask yourself, would this make sense to my kids if I were to tell them what they need to learn and to become better at? Standards and objectives are often vague and hard to understand, even for teachers, so it's your job to interpret them into something the students will understand clearly. Something like, students, when we finish this project, you should be able to, and then you fill in the blank there. Section 4 is the experience you want your kids to have. It's the battle plan for teaching your lesson. This is where you write how you're going to proceed with your lesson in your class. Our class goal is to have you figure out how you can step out of the traditional role of being in front of the room and lecturing to having the students participate in an activity that embeds the learning experience that you want. So you become the guide by the side rather than the sage at the stage. And that also helps them to become better at that ISTE standard that you've chosen. And since this is a technology integration class, what technology resources or tool will you use to either help make it easier for you, the teacher, or help the students as they learn? So you need to include how you're going to use technology in this lesson plan. Section 5 is the additional help section. This section is specifically for you and for the teachers that you're going to share it with. Are there any additional resources you can link to in here that will help another teacher to quickly learn what is needed to use your lesson plan or the technology tools and resources that you've included in it? For example, if we were including Adobe Spark as the technology that we were using, are there web pages or YouTube videos that would quickly show a teacher how to use Adobe Spark? Those should be included. Are there awesome additional resources for the book To Kill a Mockingbird? Those resources should be talked about and linked to in this section. So anything you can do to help yourself further down the road in case you forget, or to help another teacher who picks this up, that will be useful. The 6th section is your experience. This section demonstrates to us that you've actually tried out or researched the technology that you're including in the lesson plan. In this example, you would need to actually try out Adobe Spark. It is free. You need to learn to use it to become familiar with it and then report on your experience with it. What are its best features in your opinion? What was easy or hard to figure out and use? What advice would you have for us that haven't tried it yet? Now, if Adobe Spark wasn't free, we'd expect you to research reviews about it from other teachers and report on those in this section instead. Section 7 is the assessment section. In other words, how will you know your kids learned it? In this section of the lesson plan, you describe what you will do to know that your students have learned the Utah Core Standard. How will your students demonstrate that they've become better at the ISTE standard that you chose? What could you do? I guess you could put a rubric in this section if that would work for you, or you could describe your formal or informal assessment strategy here. That's basically it. Finally, you just need to make sure that it looks professional, there are no spelling errors, grammar mistakes, and that all your links work. We want you to make this interactive, so put hyperlinks in there to resources, screenshots of the tool or the resource, video pictures, whatever. When everything is good, save it as a PDF file and submit the assignment.